Hello everyone, I'm Anas Al Ubaidi, and this is session 13 or lecture 13 within chapter 24 of the Advanced Medical Science Liaison and Medical Monitor Certification course program by CCRPS. The chapter is about conceptual and theoretical monitoring, while the topic for this session is about monitoring of drug logic and drug rationality interaction trials. Introduction. We'll start with the definition in the introduction as drug logic and drug rationality interaction trials investigate how cognitive logic and rational decision making processes influence patient behavior, drug adherence, and therapeutic outcomes. These trials analyze how patients process information about a drug and the decisions they make relative to its use. The significance ensures understanding of how reasoning impacts adherence, identifies gaps in rational behaviors influencing drug efficacy, informs strategies for tailoring interventions to cognitive and logical patterns. Key points. The logic assessment. Definition as logic assessment evaluates how patients use reasoning to process drug related information, interpret risks and benefits, and make decisions accordingly. And here's a summarized diagram on exploring logic in patient decision making as logic assessment in patients here goes into or um, goes towards the risk benefit analysis, correcting misconceptions and patterns in decision making. Continuing with the logic assessment, focus area. Risk benefit analysis assess how well patients evaluate the consequences of taking or skipping medication based on logical reasoning. Example, a clinical trial for blood pressure medication revealed that many patients discontinued use after logically but incorrectly attributing stomach discomfort to the drug's side effects. Correcting misconceptions, identify common logical errors that tether proper drug use, such as overestimations of side effects. Example, patients in a chronic pain trial avoided opioid use due to a flawed logical association between all opioids and addiction risks. Patterns in decision making. Analyze how different demographics, as for instance, for example, age, education, apply logic to understanding medication risks and benefits. Importance improving logic ensures patients' decisions align more closely with the intended therapeutic benefits of a drug, enhancing both adherence and safety. Rationality evaluation. Definition. Rationality evaluation examines whether a patient's decisions regarding drug use are evidence based and aligned with perceived benefits. Before we continue or proceed with focus area for rationality evaluation, here's a summarized diagram on exploring rationality in patient decisions. On the left, rationality evaluation, while on the right, cost benefit decisions, overcoming irrational fears guiding rational educational interventions. Focus area for rationality evaluation. Cost benefit decisions investigate whether patients rationally evaluate the trade off between short term inconvenience and long term health benefits. Example, a diabetes study showed that patients who reasoned rationally about the life saving impact of insulin injections were less likely to skip doses compared to those who prioritized convenience. Overcoming irrational fears, understand how cultural, social, or psychological factors contribute to rational drug reluctance. As, for example, a psychotropic drug trial found that adherence increased after addressing participants' irrational fears regarding dependency. Guiding rational educational interventions use insights to create patient education programs tailored to fostering evidence based decisions. Importance here promotes rational, informed behavior that improves adherence and enhances treatment outcomes. Data integrity. Definition as data integrity ensures that cognitive and behavioral results collected during these trials are accurate, unbiased, and reliable. Here is a summarized diagram on ensuring data integrity in trials. On the left, data integrity. On the right, standardized cognitive tests, objective behavior monitoring, and bias analysis. Continuing with the data integrity strategies for safeguarding data, standardized cognitive tests use validated tools like decision making or logic based questionnaires to ensure consistency. As, for example, a hypertension drug trial used a logic assessment tool to evaluate patient decisions about adjusting their medication based on blood pressure readings. Objective behavior monitoring combines self reported behavior with objective analytics such as tracker data or pull counts to validate accuracy. Bias analysis actively identify and mitigate cultural, educational, or socioeconomic factors that might skew results. Importance here, accurate data strengthens the reliability of trial outcomes, ensuring actionable insights. Steps to implement effective monitoring. Step 1, protocol development. Define endpoints that evaluate the influence of reasoning and rationality on adherence and outcomes. Example, a cardiovascular trial focused on why patients skip doses, linking this behavior to perceived risks. Here's a diagram summarizing the steps for implementing effective monitoring in trials. Protocol development as step 1, real time data collection, regulatory compliance, then risk management. Step 2, real time data collection. Use digital platforms for real time tracking of patient decision making in various scenarios. As, for example, an opioid trial utilized smartphone apps to capture participant reasoning during pain flare ups. Step 3, regulatory compliance. Align trial designs with required standards for cognitive testing. Obtain will inform consent to use behavioral data. As, for example, a psychotropic drug trial gained regulatory approval by ensuring transparency about the behavioral data being collected. Step 4, risk management. Identify challenges like low literacy or cultural biases and adapt accordingly. And here's an example, as an asthma trial adjusted educational interventions after discovering that low literacy levels impacted rationality in inhaler usage. Tools and techniques for monitoring. Cognitive assessments use problem solving tasks to evaluate participants' ability to make logical informed decisions. As, for example, a neurodegenerative medication trial used logic puzzles to assess participants' reasoning capabilities. Here's a summarized diagram summarizing the innovative strategies for effective patient monitoring and decision making from left to right: cognitive assessments, decision making models, digital platforms, behavioral psychology, structured questionnaires. Decision making models implement tools like cost benefit analysis frameworks to compare patients' preferences and adherence behaviors. As, for example, a cancer trial examining chemotherapy adherence used a benefits versus perceived burden model to identify barriers. Digital platforms, interactive platforms simulate real life scenarios requiring logical decision making about medications. As, for example, a diabetes trial simulated choosing correct mealtime insulin doses through an app based tasks. Behavioral psychology frameworks apply theories like the theory of reasoned action or theory of planned behavior to predict how patients will behave based on intentions and perceived social roles. As for example, an adherence focused trial applied cognitive behavioral theory to target patients with poor adherence due to anxiety. Structured um, questionnaires use standardized surveys to collect data on patient reasoning, including perceived risks or observed actions. As, for example, a migraine drug trial combined cognitive assessments and patient-reported decision-making surveys to fine-tune educational efforts. Examples of successful trials: rationality gap study and anticoagulant therapy focused on patient understanding of clot risks, leading to the integration of new educational modules aligned with reasoning patterns. Here's a diagram summarizing the strategies for enhancing patient care. From the left, improving patient outcomes. Right to the right, we have anticoagulant therapy education, asthma management adherence, diabetes insulin adherence, psychotropic therapy hesitation, vaccine acceptance campaigns. Behavioral adherence in asthma management used logic based tutorials to reduce inhaler misuse and improve medication adherence. Diabetes decision making interventions enhance insulin adherence through cognitive screening and personalized educational programs. Psychotropic medication studies identified factors contributing to therapy hesitation and addressed them with detailed rationality based interventions. Campaign for evidence based vaccine acceptance improved uptake in vaccine resistant cohorts through logical clarification campaigns. Next, we will summarize what we have covered through this lecture via some tables. Here's a table on key differences between drug logic and drug rationality interaction trials. Aspect, drug logic interaction, drug rationality interaction. In definition, drug logic interaction evaluates logical reasoning in drug decisions, while in drug rationality interaction examines rationale, evidence based decisions. More aspects, we have examples of analysis, decision complexity, trial approach, outcome focus. Table on key components of monitoring. Component focus example. Components, we have logic assessment, rationality evaluation, data integrity, real world relevance, patient education. Table on steps to implement effective monitoring. Step purpose example. Steps, we have protocol development, real time data collection, ethical compliance, risk identification, data analysis. Table on tools and techniques for monitoring. Tool or technique. Purpose example. Here the tools or the techniques: cognitive assessments, decision making models, digital platforms, behavioral frameworks, structured questionnaires. Table on applications of drug logic and drug rationality trials. Trial type, focus outcome. Trial types, we have anticoagulant therapy, asthma adherence, cognitive diabetes trials, psychotropic drug use, vaccine resistance. Application table, scenario. For each scenario, key principle applied, key actions, timeline, what to watch out for. Scenarios, we have monitoring anticoagulant adherence based on patient perception of dose skipping risks, tracking poor treatment adherence due to perceived addiction, risks during painkiller use, evaluating rational insulin adherence patterns among patients, balancing inconvenience versus necessity, using smart apps to capture reasoning during opioid therapy adherence for pain flare ups, screening patient hesitation for psychotropic medications and mental health trials, testing decision making interventions for patients hesitant about antihypertension therapy initiation, developing behavior driven adherence strategies for asthma inhaler misuse, measuring logical reasoning for antidepressant decision making during seasonal affective disorder trials. Continuing with scenarios, we have implementing structured cognitive tests in hypertension patients for logical blood pressure control, studying vaccine acceptance patterns in rural patients using behavior modeling frameworks, conducting decision prioritization tasks for cancer patients during chemotherapy dose adherence, incorporating scenario simulating digital platforms for cognitive based adherence evaluation. We will revise what we have covered through this lecture through some MCQs or multiple choice questions. Question 1: what is the primary aim of drug logic and drug rationality interaction trials? A. To analyze biological mechanisms of drug metabolism. B. To study cognitive processes and rational decision making in drug adherence. C. To identify the chemical structure of new medications. D. To categorize environmental influences on therapeutic outcomes. The most correct, accurate answer between the four choices would be B, to study cognitive processes and rational decision making in drug adherence, as these trials investigate how logical reasoning and rational decision making affect patient adherence, behavior, and therapeutic results, enabling interventions tailored to cognitive patterns. Question 2: which aspect does logic assessment specifically address in these trials? A. Evaluating reflex responses to medications. B. Understanding how patients interpret drug information using reasoning. C. Measuring genetic differences in patient metabolism. Or D. Analyzing the role of environmental stressors in drug absorption. So definitely the answer between the four choices would be B, as understanding how patients interpret drug information using reasoning. As logic assessment focuses on evaluating how patients utilize reasoning to understand drug risks and benefits, highlighting gaps in logical interpretations of treatment strategies. Question 3: how does rationality evaluation improve drug adherence? A. By examining reasons behind evidence driven or irrational medication behaviors. B. By testing the physical endurance of patients during therapy. C. By ensuring participants strictly follow protocol guidelines. Or D. By analyzing the influence of global climates on drug performance. So the answer would be A, by examining reasons behind evidence driven or irrational medication behaviors, as rationality evaluation identifies factors like fear of side effects or perceived inconvenience, ensuring that behavior aligns with evidence based benefits to improve adherence. Question 4: what is the purpose of using decision making models in these trials? A. To track vital signs like blood pressure. B. To predict drug efficacy under different chemical conditions. C. To examine patient choices based on cost benefit analysis frameworks. Or D. To determine molecular interactions in pharmacodynamic studies. So, answer would be C, as C is the most accurate, correct answer in between the four choices. To examine patient choices based on cost benefit analysis framework. So, C would be the answer, as decision making models analyze patient decision making processes using rational frameworks such as cost benefit assessments to evaluate adherence behavior and preferences. Question 5: how do behavioral psychology frameworks aid in understanding adherence? A. By explaining the relationship between logical intentions and patient outcomes. B. By simulating drug interactions and pharmacological models. C. By standardizing chemical tests for improved trial reliability. Or D. By identifying genetic markers affecting patient compliance. So the answer would be A, by explaining the relationship between logical intentions and patient actions, as behavioral psychology frameworks like the theory of reasoned action provide insights into the underlying intentions and social pressures that influence patients' adherence to prescribed therapies. And here we come to the end of this lecture. Thank you very much and goodbye.